justice and peace, and equality.
Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. We're back with Judge James D. Boles, Henry County State Court Judge, fair, accessible, respectful. You pride yourself on taking Henry County F.A.R. In living by those three principles, not just through life but in the courtroom now. And going far, you was telling us in the first episode that your journey from coming from Henry County to college and going to the mock trial. But tell us what happened after school, and tell us what leading up to being a judge. What was that journey like?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I graduated from law school,
okay.
I guess I have to backtrack a little bit before graduating from law school, because I started the process
okay.
Even in undergrad. So I was doing the undergrad mock trial stuff. My last year of undergrad, I started interning with a law office.
Okay.
And started to try and get some legal experience. And I would just offer to do anything I could, if it was pushing paperwork or making deliveries or whatever I needed to do to stay in that environment.
Okay.
So I go to law school after doing some light interning my last year of undergrad.
Okay.
When I started law school, I got a phone call from an attorney that said, "Hey, I've got an office that I'm about to start practicing at, and you can come intern with us. You can do this all through law school." And,
definitely.
Eventually, when you get a little bit further into law school, I think they offer it for your last year, your 3L year.
Okay.
You could start interning with offices for school credit as opposed to being in the classroom.
Definitely.
So I took advantage of that. But I started my very first year of law school with a local criminal defense attorney. At the time, our office was off of Hudson Bridge behind the Publix in those corporate office parks.
Okay.
And it was an attorney named Lee Sexton.
Right.
Lee Sexton was a criminal defense attorney with a phenomenal reputation. He was incredible in a courtroom. He for a long time in the metro Atlanta area, and I mean all over, frankly, the state of Georgia, but especially in metro Atlanta and Clayton County and Henry County. If you needed a good attorney, you called Lee Sexton. That was how people felt about that.
Definitely.
So I had the experience and the opportunity to work with Mr. Sexton throughout law school. And there were other attorneys, Bradley Moody, Vinny Lottie, who is now our chief state court judge,
okay.
That were working in that office at the time. And I was getting to engage with them and getting the experience of going to court and learning how to do everything to practice law on my own eventually.
Okay.
And we had a wide range of practice. So even in law school, I was learning how to do personal injury cases. I was learning how to do family law cases,
wow.
how to do criminal defense cases.
Okay.
So I did that for the 3 years that I was in law school.
Okay.
When I graduated law school, I took a little time off to study for the bar. I passed the bar the very first try.
Wow.
I studied my tail off for the bar,
okay.
and candidly, I blew it out of the water.
Wow.
And it's not because I'm a legal savant. It's because I worked my tail off to make sure
okay.
I was going to pass it.
Definitely.
I couldn't afford the process. That process and taking the bar is 6 months between taking the bar, getting your results, the studying process. So basically, if you don't pass the bar,
okay.
you're another year out on your career. I wasn't willing to take another year.
Definitely.
So that being said, I graduated, took the bar and passed, and I immediately began working in Lee Sexton and Associates. I worked of counsel to Lee, which means that I wasn't on Lee's payroll, but we were working together on cases.
Okay.
And I was out here. I started the law office of James D. Boles in 2016, and just kind of began the grind for myself. I focused primarily at that time on personal injury and criminal defense.
Okay.
Later on, I started doing a little bit more family law and a little bit less personal injury because the personal injury market is saturated. And until you get to a point that you can start putting yourself on billboards, personal injury is marketing. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
And once if you can market yourself for the cases, then you do very well in personal injury.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I found that my passion grew to become criminal defense.
Okay.
So the law office of James D. Boles, I did predominantly criminal defense work with that.
Definitely.
In 2021, Mr. Sexton passed away.
Okay.
And when he passed away, we decided that it was time to start making some changes.
Definitely.
I became a partner in what was then created the Sexton and Moody law firm.
Okay.
So I was a partner at Sexton and Moody. That same year in 2021, we moved from Eagles Landing, Hudson Bridge area to just off the square of McDonough. If you stand on the front steps of the Superior Court Courthouse and turn, if you're facing the courthouse, if you turn to your left, right there on Jonesboro Street, there's a huge white building at 33 Jonesboro Street. And that was my law office. I practiced there from 2021 until my appointment in June of 2025. Again, focusing primarily on criminal defense was probably 95% of my work. Still doing some personal injury, still doing some family law, but predominantly criminal defense.
Awesome.
So I was doing that, and not to get off track, but when we were doing these cases, it was all over the metropolitan Atlanta area. I did a lot of work in Henry and Clayton County, but I would get out as far as DeKalb, Gwinnett. I joked. So there's a town called Ringgold, Georgia. It's the last stop before you get to Chattanooga. You're right at the Tennessee. You're right at the Tennessee line. I've had a case in Ringgold. I've had cases in Valdosta. So I've literally been all over the state of Georgia.
And I believe going to Tennessee, me and my family, we take trips up to Sayreville to the water park. I believe that that city is it Ringgold,
yes sir.
They like got a good football team or something like that, right?
I think
the
so.
High school football team. I remember seeing something about their football team. So when you go to them, man, I mean the cell phone service don't work. So you already know. Now in talking about your criminal defense and you serving in criminal defense, what inspired you to open your own law firm?
So I opened my own law firm because I wanted to give myself the opportunity to grow. I didn't want to go take a job under someone else, either as a prosecutor or someone like a public defender, or even just go be an associate at one of the big name firms. I wanted to learn how to not only run the business, but to engage in the practice in a way that my livelihood was on the line, so I stayed hungry. That was what I wanted.
And so what was the experience like? I mean, working under Lee Sexton, rest in peace to Attorney Sexton, and like the mentorship that you receive and, that led you to where you are today. What was that? Because everybody don't get that type of mentorship, that type of, sitting right up under, Lee Sexton.
Absolutely, Lee would take me all over. I would go to different towns, and I've watched Lee try cases. I've sat next to him with pen and pad during jury selection and making notes, and he would get through the process. And right before he would get through the process of questioning jurors to kind of determine who we were going to strike or who we were going to keep as our jury, and I'd be over there making notes, and he'd turn to me when we were done with the questioning process before we made the picks, and we would sit there and go through things and talk, and he would impart knowledge upon me, but also he would listen to me, and that was important to me because it made me feel like I had something to offer. But it was an incredible process having that opportunity.
Now you have an acronym for FAR, being fair, being accessible, being respectful to the people who come in your courtroom. What does it mean to be fair? Is fair even? Fair is it? I think that's a non-optional thing to stand on. You got to be fair. Tell us what that means to be fair and why you stand on that principle.
Yeah, absolutely. So my three principles in general are all modeled after what I've experienced in the last 9 months as a judge. So when I say be fair, I mean anybody that walks into the courtroom should be treated like they are a human.
Right.
They're not just a defendant.
Correct.
These are people that have a lot of things going on. And my experience in the diversion court has taught me to understand that you don't know what's going on in someone else's life, and you need to be fair. Fairness within the eyes of the law. Look, this isn't personal. I'm going to follow the law, and I'm going to do what the law requires me to do. But at the same time, fair is if I can give you the benefit of something based on a case-by-case basis. Taking a look at everybody that comes before the court. Fair is treating people in a way that well, the law requires this, but we can give you the benefit of these things. We can maybe suspend the fine here. Or we can say, hey, based off of what you're telling me, you haven't been employed for, the last 2 years. I see your arm's in a cast or something like that.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about fair. Is it fair that this person who hasn't been able to work for the last couple of years needs to have to pay all these fines?
Wow.
Well, no, that's probably not fair. Or maybe do community service that we know that they're probably not going to be able to do based on like a health condition or something like that.
Okay.
So it's taking those things in account and using the discretion of the court
Definitely.
to treat people fairly.
Definitely. And I believe treating people fairly is one good thing. Like the stigma that, it's a big stigma on just going to court. When it's like you get this bubble in your gut, I gotta go to court today. I know this judge is gonna railroad me. I know this judge is gonna, throw the book at me. But it seems like you guys have not you guys, the entire accountability court, state court has a way of trying to pivot to rehabilitate citizens and get them back to being gainfully employed, productive citizens of their community. I think you guys pride yourself on that.
That's exactly right. I mean, the ultimate goal here is to make the community better, and
Okay.
if the community is better, we're all doing better. We're looking for a way to have people decide to make better decisions when it's
Right.
just something that if it turns out all they had to do was think to themselves, well, you know what? I shouldn't have been driving that fast. I could hurt myself. Or I could have hurt somebody else. Okay,
Right,
well,
right.
well, let's put some things in place. Let's take a defensive driving course, or
Okay.
let's do a traffic violators impact program, which means we go listen to people whose lives have been harmed by someone who was driving recklessly or speeding.
Wow, okay.
And then maybe next time you're thinking about, or you're not thinking, is probably the better way to go about it.
Definitely.
Well, maybe now the light bulb will go off and say, hey, well, you know what? It's probably just not worth it to be like that.
Totally understood.
So, a couple of things come to mind when you're talking about, going into court. You've got the bubble feeling in your stomach. I hope this judge isn't going to be mean, and they're going to throw the book at me. There was a young lady that came in for the misdemeanor diversion court.
Okay.
And we went through the process, and I was talking to her. And again, these misdemeanor diversion court meetings are just like me and you having a conversation.
Gotcha.
And I'm talking to her, and she decides she wants to be part of the program, and all of a sudden she just started crying. And I was like, ma'am, it's okay. Well, are we're getting her a tissue. Well, what's going on? And she said, I was so scared. I was so worried that this was going to be so bad.
Okay.
And it's not. And just thank y'all. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. This isn't bad. This is actually we're very calm here. It's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. We definitely understand that. Now you spoke about you being accessible.
Yeah.
A lot of different times, many judges, they you gotta go through, walk around the chamber for it. You gotta, but you pride yourself on being accessible and making sure that, hey, you don't come, like you said, you don't come down in your robe. You don't come down when you're dealing with people who come into your court. You don't come down in a robe. You don't come down in a fancy suit. Tell us what it means to be accessible.
Being accessible means a few things. So
Okay.
First of all, within the courthouse, within the courtroom setting, being accessible means putting in the hours,
Okay.
putting in the extra work, being available. As a private practice attorney, and I don't have to name names because it's all over the state of Georgia, you've got some good judges, you've got some judges that aren't so good.
Okay.
And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to communicate with a judge's office or get orders signed or something like that and not hearing anything for 2 weeks at a time. I mean, you want to have that open line of communication to people that come before the court.
Okay.
That's part of being accessible. I'll give you an example. So we did this interview at noon today. That's
Okay.
because we're on my lunch break.
Okay.
I was at the courthouse working before I came over here to speak with you.
Wow.
So
Wow.
we had an individual contact us that has been in the Department of Corrections. So he's been in
Okay.
prison for about 5 years now.
Okay.
He had a 2011 driving under the influence charge. And as a
Okay.
result of that charge, for him to get his license back, he was going to have to do what's called an interlock device. It's the thing you have to blow in to get the car to start.
Yeah.
So he's in prison. He's been there for some time. He's near the end of his sentence. He's about to get to come home.
Okay.
He's got a few things that he's dealing with. He's on work release.
Okay.
They want him to be able to drive and do certain things. He can't because he doesn't have his license. And
Right,
the
right.
Department of Corrections isn't going to put an interlock device in.
Right.
Well, so he reached out to my office. He sent me an email from prison.
Yeah.
And he said, Judge, here's what's going on. I want to be able to get my license back to do these things on this work release program.
Okay.
And also I want to be able to get my license back so when I get out, I'll be able to go provide for myself and, start a new new life.
Okay.
And so I'm given the benefit, the opportunity to sign what's called an interlock waiver. So he reached out to me, provided me some documentation from where he had been in the Department of Corrections for the last few years.
Okay.
I signed a waiver based on a financial hardship this morning. That's
Okay.
going to mean that he doesn't have to do the interlock device program, that he'll be able to get his license back and be able to continue to work on that work release program
Okay.
until he's released, and then he'll have his license back. So that's accessible. Being able to just, it's something as simple as an email. You can reach out to me and get a result. That's
Yes.
what people are looking for.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about accessibility outside of the courtroom. Outside of the courtroom, what's very important to me as a judge is not staying up in what those ivory towers are. staying up in my courthouse, or staying up in my third floor office,
Yeah.
looking down at the people coming into the courthouse and never having any kind of involvement with them.
Okay.
That's not what that's about.
Wow.
So that's being a pillar of the community.
Okay.
Getting out and mentoring, involving yourself in community service. Those are the things that make you accessible as a public servant. And that's exactly what we are. As a state court judge, I'm a public servant to the community of Henry County.
Man, I respect that to the fullest, man. And being the fact that you're not trying to sit on this hierarchy and say, hey, I'm this guy. You're trying to meet people, being fair under the black letter of the law, making sure that, we're not saying people are not going to receive their punishment or their sentence, but we're saying we're going to make sure that we get you on the road to recovery and get you in the right direction of moving your life forward and hoping that you go far in life. And leading with, that you talk about being respectful. What does it mean to be respectful? Because you could be a snob. You can say, hey, man, I'm the guy calling the shots here, and I'm this, I'm that, and be full of yourself, but you pride yourself on being respectful.
That's exactly right. Respectful's easy for me.
Okay.
That I don't have to go out of my way to do.
Okay.
I think everybody deserves respect.
Okay.
And that just comes naturally to me.
Definitely.
Just candidly, the way I was raised.
Okay.
And my dealings in my legal career for the last 10 years as a criminal defense attorney.
Okay.
I've been treated with less than respect by people who are in the same position that I'm in at times, and certainly not often, but it does happen.
Okay. Okay.
And you walk away from that situation with a bad taste in your mouth, and you
Definitely.
think, well, that was just so unnecessary. And that's how I feel about it. I don't think it's necessary to treat people with anything less than dignity and respect.
Man.
So when you come in my courtroom and you are having that bubble feeling in your stomach and hoping the judge doesn't throw the book at you, even punishment aside or consequences of your action aside, fines or classes or community service or whatever it may be, I want you to walk away from the courtroom thinking, yeah, I should have made a better decision. I put myself in this situation, but that judge was nice. He was respectful.
Yeah.
He was kind.
Yeah.
And he was fair.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we're looking for here.
Yeah.
Again, I'm from Henry County. I was born and raised here. One of my first jobs was working at the Publix on Highway 81 when I was in high school.
Oh, man.
And you deal with things like that, and you engage yourself in the community, and you learn to be respectful to people, because nobody deserves less than the utmost respect.
Man, totally respect that. I totally admire that. Totally admire your admiration and the things that you stand for and representing the citizens of Henry County. Now, just being that you've been in for 9 months, you work with you got the feel of what it feels like to be a judge. What is the relationship like with your peers? I know you work with Judge Lottie, Judge Knights, you mentioned Judge Boyd, Judge Bailey. Those are kind of like your peers. And I remember seeing a moment where I know Pam Bettis was the attorney, general solicitor.
She was our solicitor general.
Right.
Yes, sir.
What was it like environment in mobilizing what modern Henry County government looks like today under the judicial system? What was that like?
Man, I tell people all the time, communication is key.
Okay.
If we're not communicating, we're not working as a unified front to get things done.
Definitely.
I mean, it shouldn't be any secret. Judges have a group text message thread sort of thing. We're talking every day.
Okay.
And as you indicated, what was formerly Solicitor General Bettis is now Judge Bettis. She's our 5th state court judge here in Henry County. She was recently appointed.
Okay.
As a result of her appointment, LaShonda Harris is now our Solicitor General, and I communicate with LaShonda Harris, if not daily, I mean, multiple times a week, and she's been phenomenal. I really enjoy working with LaShonda. I've known her since I started practicing law. 10 years ago, she was doing preliminary hearings, and I was a young lawyer walking in trying to figure out how to conduct myself in a preliminary hearing. She was never anything but kind and fair to me. I think she is an asset to the community. I'm so happy to see Ms. Harris get to be our Solicitor General, and I couldn't be happier for Judge Bettis having the opportunity to have the honor of sitting the bench as well. So that's been phenomenal. But that's it. Communication is key, and not just with the state court judges.
Right.
You know, with our Chief Superior Court Judge Holly Veal. You know, with Judge Danielle Roberts, Chandra Lewis, and Judge Pandora Palmer. These are people that I've had a relationship, you know, even prior to being on the bench, that I've thought the most of. I've had the utmost respect for, and I think that we have one of the, if not the best, judicial systems within the state of Georgia because of the good people that we have on the bench.
Man, that is awesome, man. Henry County is growing and doing phenomenal things. We got to go to one last commercial break. Want to give a shout out to our community partners, District Attorney Darius Patello with the F.A.R Moves initiative, helping young people in the community going in, building civic engagement and civic leaders throughout the community. Also, we want to give a shout out to Sheriff Reginald Scandrett and his S3 program, along with Shaquille O'Neal. They're doing phenomenal things along with the Boys and Girls Club of Henry County. We also want to give a shout out to Life Beyond Water, and as well as Restore, Revive, Renew, doing phenomenal things in the community, making sure that our community has the resources it needs to help the people to help people to meet the need. So we want to thank all of our community partners who partner with us. You guys stay tuned. Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast, where change starts with conversation. Stay tuned.
Justice and peace and equality. Now the world they will see. That's why.